Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
How does PwC take your company to the leading edge? They bring the sharpest minds in tech to your team, so you can bring the ideas that will transform your business. They're passionate about your industry, so you can walk into any room with every advantage. And they're with you every step of the way, so you can know you're headed in the right direction. PwC builds for what's next, so you can get there now. Get started at pwc.com/us/leading edge.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Roger Stone Show. Here we talk politics, news, history, sports, food, and style. We give it to you straight. It's the stone cold truth. We criticize Republicans and Democrats. And, I bring 50 years in the arena to the table for my observations. The rise of the MAGA movement in America has also given rise to what is known as the influencer. Influencers, those are conservative commentators, used to be heavily censored on social media, but with the advent of Elon Musk buying Twitter and changing it into X as a platform for free speech, that in turn has given rise to people like our next guest. Rogan O'Handley, also known as DC Drano, is an attorney, but more importantly, he is a prominent conservative commentator who always has a pungent view on what's going on in America. He is epically entertaining as well as educational. I follow him closely on X, and I'm delighted to have him with us today. Rogan, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Thank you, Roger. You are too kind. It is an absolute honor to be on your show, sir.
So you and I, for that matter, have been very critical of the judicial tyranny going on in the country, where unelected federal judges seem to be determined to stop the will of the American people as expressed in the last election. And left-wing nonprofits and other litigants go forum shopping to find the most left-wing and radical judges they can to try to stop Donald Trump's reform agenda. What do you think their plan really is?
Well, I think we're seeing their plan unfold. You know, we kind of expected it. I don't think anyone expected it to be this much of a stop to the Trump agenda. There are record injunctions, national injunctions, and these, leftist lawfare agents are not only forum shopping, they're pretty much judge shopping. It is just such a strange coincidence that Judge Boasberg has been selected for so many high-profile Trump cases that we just, something stinks. And then we're starting to see that Chief Justice Roberts is in a club, a secret club with some of these other D.C. circuit judges who are far left. And, we're starting to see their plan unfold, and it's effectively a judicial coup. They're trying to nullify the sacred power of the American people's vote, the popular vote, to stop the Trump agenda, especially these mass deportations.
Just happened to be the same judge who oversaw the FISA court when they decided to approve spying on President Donald Trump's presidential campaign in 2016. It's the same Judge Boasberg who showed up without his robe, along with Judge Amy Berman Jackson, the judge who sat in my case. In the audience when deranged Jack Smith, the special prosecutor, indicted President Donald Trump on the January 6th related matters, another bogus, politically motivated indictment, I think that shows where he stands. And then we learned that the Chief Justice actually spent time with Norm Eisen in Europe, luxuriating at Eisen's place over there. This really gives one pause as to what's really going on here. It looks to me like they want to gunk up the machine with as many extraneous appeals and filings as possible. You wrote this. The more time passes, more people get used to living with 20 million illegals, and support from the President Trump will soften. That is their hope, no?
That is their plan. They lost all federal power in Congress and the White House, and technically they don't have power in the Supreme Court. We have a 6-3, but it's sadly looking like a 5-4 against us on the most controversial cases, especially with Amy Coney Barrett. Kavanaugh's a little squishy, and Justice Roberts is the new, Justice Kennedy at this point. So we really can't rely on the courts to approve the Trump agenda. And so what I have proposed, since these judges have shown their cards, they're engaging in a judicial coup, they're infringing on the Article 2 powers of the presidency, right? These are not normal judicial decisions. These are overreaching judicial decisions. I think that Trump should exercise constitutional power of suspending the writ of habeas corpus for illegal aliens granted under Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution.
Well, see, Franklin Roosevelt used it in World War II. Abraham Lincoln used it in the Civil War. Even Ulysses S. Grant used it. As you have pointed out, all of their faces ended up on our national currency. Something has to give here. It's amazing that when a judge got arrested this past couple of days for trying to help a violent illegal escape deportation, the left immediately said, Trump is arresting judges for their judicial decisions, which is not even remotely what happened. It seems to me we're reaching a stalemate here in which the judges just simply refuse to allow the will of the American people to be implemented. It's deeply disturbing. But anybody who thinks that Donald Trump will somehow quit or soften his views or throw in the towel, they don't know him. I want to ask you also, Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, who you supported earlier and I did not. I'm man enough to admit when I make a mistake. I think she's turned out to be great. She's conducted these hearings on the Kennedy assassination. I think she's done a great job, but at the same time, I don't think she's been given everything that is in the hands of our current federal government. I hope that she will have yet another hearing because there are a lot of unexplored areas. What did you think of those hearings and the job she's doing?
Right. I agree. I think she has been doing a tremendous job. She is a diehard patriot. She's a veteran. She was an active duty airwoman in the Air Force. Her husband is a special operations soldier in the Air Force. He was shot in Afghanistan. She nursed him back to health, and he still went and deployed after that. They are patriots down to the bone, and I've talked with her outside of these hearings. She is extremely enthusiastic about these hearings. She wants the truth. But what, her job is, Trump gave the order to release these documents. Tulsi Gabbard is going through and sending them out. But as we've seen, there are malevolent actors within the deep state who are going to hide things, who are going to suppress things. And so it's Anna's job and her committee to seek out and send subpoenas and bring people to hearings to make sure that these documents were released. I think it was a tremendous start, but even she has admitted there are some documents that are still missing. And so she is a pit bull. And when she latches her jaw into something, she doesn't let go. So I am optimistic that we will get to the bottom of this.
I agree with your analysis. I've been trying to send knowledgeable people in the JFK researcher community her way because there is a great deal of missing. The president ordered the release of the National Archives JFK Assassinations Record Collection. And while there's a lot of interesting things there, there's an enormous amount missing. Things that we know, videos, audios, transcripts, and documents that were examined by the Assassination Records Review Board in the 90s, but conveniently seem to have disappeared in this recent search. Folks, if you're just tuning in, we're talking to Rogan O'Handley, also known as DC Drano, and we'll be right back.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This episode is brought to you by Loom by Atlassian. Are you feeling stuck at work? Get your team unstuck with Loom video messaging and move work forward. Use Loom to simultaneously record both your screen and yourself to share a quick update, provide feedback, train a colleague, and everything in between. Plus, add Loom AI to your meetings for instant written notes and recordings. Try Loom today at Loom.com. That's LOOM.com.
This episode is brought to you by Buick. Buick certified service technicians are factory trained to fit your vehicle with the tires specifically developed for it. And with our tire price match guarantee, you get the best fit for the best deal. Buick, exceptional by design. Available on select eligible tire brands at participating dealers only. Offer ends 12/31/2025. Terms apply. See dealer for complete details. Visit Buick.com/service to learn more.
The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. If you're just tuning in, this is the Roger Stone Show. We're talking to Rogan O'Handley, better known as DC Drano. Rogan, tell people where they can find you on X to read your pithy commentary.
Yes, sir. I'm on X at DC_Drano. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Truth. I'm on Getter. I'm on all the major platforms except YouTube. I don't really do a lot of YouTubing.
Well, you're fortunate. I'm still banned for life on Facebook, banned for life on Instagram, banned for life on YouTube. Not that I would go there anyway. So, folks, I urge you to definitely check out Rogan's commentary. It always brings a smile to my face, to be honest with you. I love the fact that you called Bernie Sanders out. This guy is the biggest phony that ever lived. He used to criticize billionaires and millionaires and oligarchs. Now he just criticizes billionaires. That's because Bernie and his wife have become millionaires essentially by skimming millions of dollars in so-called media commissions off of his two presidential campaigns. Now, while that is not illegal, I seriously wonder whether his donors, particularly at the $25 level, have any idea that the Sanders are getting incredibly rich off of their donations. You called him out for jetting across the country from rally to rally, railing about climate change, but doing so in a private jet.
Yeah, you can't make this up. He's been caught now at least twice on video departing from a private jet as he goes to his, defeat the oligarchy rallies where he's obviously talking about climate change. And, not only does he not believe in what he says, he certainly doesn't live it, but he's got AOC joining him. She's the queen of the Green New Steel, right? And as we've seen, this is just a massive money laundering operation that, akin to what they do with Act Blue, akin to what they do with the, quote, Inflation Reduction Act, which was just a lot of climate change and woke nonsense. So, as Batia Unger, who's a very prolific speaker, rising voice on the MAGA side, brought up, for every billionaire that supported President Trump, two of them supported Kamala Harris. Democrats are the party of the oligarchs, of Wall Street, of Silicon Valley. And we've got a few strays that have broken out from them. We've got Elon and a few of the other guys in Silicon Valley, but we still are highly dwarfed in terms of oligarchic support. So it just reeks of hypocrisy. And frankly, I don't think anyone's buying it except, the 70-plus-year-old people protesting at the Tesla dealerships who still believe what CNN tells them.
It's really amazing. The words moderate Democrat have become an oxymoron. The party of John F. Kennedy, Harry Truman, party that believed in capitalism, a party that believed in God, a party that believed in a strong national defense. Sure, they wanted to spend more than we wanted to. They wanted to tax more than we wanted to, but they were still fundamentally patriotic. John F. Kennedy and his brother Robert Kennedy were ardent anti-communists. Where is that strain of Democrat today? When you say that Chuck Schumer is too conservative to lead the Democrat Party, which is essentially what AOC and Jasmine Crockett are saying, that's almost bizarre. Just think we could have an AOC Jasmine Crockett ticket. Would that be great or what?
I hope we do. As someone that makes their income on the internet, it would be a target-rich environment. I think anyone listening to this show knows the only reason the Democrat Party is still even around is because of their voter fraud machines in big blue cities, Detroit, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, and elsewhere, Chicago. Without them, they would absolutely crumble. And with what's happening with the 2030 census, red states, deep red states, are expected to pick up 12 electoral college votes and, commensurate amount of congressional seats. So Democrats are going all out on preserving these illegal immigrants here, illegal aliens here in America, because as all these people have fled blue states for red states, like Florida and Tennessee and elsewhere, it's decreased the population in these blue states, and they're trying to resupply with illegal aliens who unfortunately still are at least partially counted in the census. So that's why suspending the writ of habeas corpus is so important, because this next census is all that matters. If Trump deports 10 to 15 million illegal aliens, he will save America for decades. And I know there's going to be political blowback to doing this, but we would only be suspending the writ for illegal aliens. And it would, I think, put his face on one of our national currencies at some point, because it would be an act of heroism.
All right, I know you have to dash for a plane. Let me thank our friend, D.C. Drano, also known as Rogan Handley, his real name. Thank you, and God bless you for joining us.
Thank you, Roger, and I'll be in the press briefing room tomorrow talking about suspending the writ of habeas corpus, so stay on the lookout for the press's heads to absolutely blow up.
I look forward to it. Great tweet, or I should say a posting on social media by President Donald Trump, who says, "I'm bringing Columbus Day back from the ashes. The Democrats did everything possible to destroy Columbus and his reputation and all of the Italian Americans that love him so much. They tore down his statues, put up nothing but woke, and even worse, nothing at all. Well, we'll be happy to know Christopher is going to be making a major comeback. I'm hereby reinstating Columbus Day under the same rules, dates, and locations as it has had for all of these many decades before." If you agree with that sentiment, let me urge you to join the Italian American Civil Rights League. That's the Italian American Civil Rights League. You can find us at IACRL.org. It is a nonprofit organization in which everyone is a volunteer. We have a minimum overhead, but we do fight to preserve our Italian American heritage and the great contribution that Italian Americans have made to making this country great. Check it out.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Your gut affects everything, even your mood. So Ollie created 2 brand new products to take care of your insides. Ollie Big 10 Probiotic has 10 strains of probiotics, their most ever, to support a healthy gut microbiome, immune system, and stress response. And Ollie Super Good Superfoods delivers 15 superfoods in tasty gummy form. Find them at Ollie.com and exclusively at Walmart. Ollie! These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Your snacking routine can get a little dull. Time for a light and fit remix. Like a crunchy storm of graham cookies, caramel pearls, and dark chocolate, showering down into a smooth, creamy yogurt. Enjoy 3 light and fit remix varieties with craveable flavors and up to 120 calories and 10 grams of protein per 4.5-ounce serving. See remixyogurt.com.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. You're joining the Roger Stone Show. Joining me now is Dr. Gero Arman. He is the chairman and chief executive officer of Agenus Inc. Under his leadership, that company has been making breakthroughs in scientific technologies and immunotherapy products. He received his PhD in physical chemistry from the City University in New York. And our topic today is whether the medical community and big pharma are suppressing therapies and drugs and natural supplements that could be helpful in curing cancer. I can only speak to my own experience. We're going to get into that in a second, but Dr. Arman, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Thank you very much, Roger. It's a pleasure to be here.
When, I think those who've listened to the show know this, when my wife was diagnosed with aggressive stage 4 cancer, specifically non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, the doctors suggested a regimen of chemotherapy followed by radiation. I objected to this because my wife was suffering from arthritis, and therefore she was treating that quite successfully with progesterone. Progesterone and radiation are contraindicated. They could be very dangerous together. Led me to wonder whether the doctors had even looked at her medical records, or whether this was just their cookie-cutter formula for cancer. Now, ultimately, she chose a regimen that included a drug called fenbendazole, vitamin E, curcumin, CBD oil, intravenous infusions of vitamin C, injections of vitamin D, and I'll probably mispronounce this, glutathione, which is widely available. And I attribute her miraculous recovery and the fact that now, almost 4 years later, she remains cancer-free to the fact that she chose this regimen. This leads me to believe that the big pharma and those in the medical complex know that there are drugs as well as natural supplements that could help in the cure of cancer. You yourself and your company have developed one such drug. Talk to us about the situation.
Thank you. There is a lot of truth to what you're saying. Of course, there are good doctors and not so good doctors that don't do their homework before they decide on a treatment regimen. But in reality, if you look at the last 5 decades, the estimated costs to get us to here in terms of cancer research, that includes discovery of new molecules as well as clinical trials, is estimated to be at $1 trillion over 5 decades. So if you look at the reality of where we are today, having spent $1 trillion, we still don't have cures for cancer, at least for some of the most challenging cancers, we don't. And as you said, chemotherapy and radiation, which are quite poisonous to the system, are still the standards. Now, to change that, in the last 10 years or so, there has been a resurgence of natural remedies. When I say natural remedies, these are still drugs, but they work through the natural immune system. And one of the areas of great success in the last 10 years have been with those drugs. So to your question specifically, is there a concerted effort to suppress positive developments? Probably not, to give the benefit of the doubt to the industry and regulators, but the realities still are such that we are way behind.
So why is the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, moving at a 1990s pace when we're living in this AI-powered age of medicine?
So I am a big fan of AI, as you may know. And AI, I think, while it's not perfect, it is going to change all of this and catapult the speed with which we develop drugs and we test them. and get them approved. But if you look at still today, it takes on average about 5 years from the first injection or pill given to the patient to drug approval where the drug is made widely available. And clearly, the FDA has evolved over time, I'd say, but still, I think the rules and regulations have not caught up to the innovation that the field is experiencing right now.
Look, I should say I'm not a medical doctor, and nothing I say in this conversation should be construed as medical advice. I'm merely telling you the experience that my wife and I have had personally, but also the testimony of literally thousands of people who contacted us when I went on radio and talked about my wife's situation. The number of people who contacted me through email, through text messages, people would just write Roger Stone, the name of the city I live in, and the zip code, and it would reach me, all of them telling me positive stories about fenbendazole, which was actually a drug that began, I believe, as a dog dewormer, just as ivermectin was a horse dewormer. And all of those thousands of people cannot possibly be lying, nor can they be wrong. Doctor, tell us about the therapies that you have developed and your experience so far with the FDA.
Certainly, if you look at the major advances, when, for example, Commissioner McCary talks about going after cures rather than marginal treatments, if we look at what are the curative treatments for patients today, I think it's reasonable to assume that activating the immune system to target the cancer specifically is the way to go long term, because cancer is a very complicated disease. It's different from person to person. We classify cancers by the organ in which they are present. For example, we say lung cancer, but it is a fact that no two lung cancers are exactly alike. So in order for us to be able to target these nasty cells in the body in a very, very precise manner, we must be able to activate the immune system so that what we infuse or inject into the body allows the immune system to be programmed to recognize its own target in a very specific way. So our drugs are activators of the immune system, and we call them second or third generation activators of the immune system because the first generations were CTLA-4 antibodies that were discovered in the 2000s, and then finally they made it to patients in 2011. And PD-1 antibodies that started getting to patients in 2015-16 timeframe. These were the first generation compounds, and the first generation compounds did not really do a good job in activating what we call cold cancers. For example, colon cancer is a cold cancer, whereas melanoma is a hot cancer. The difference between the two is that cold cancers are relatively invisible to the immune system, whereas hot cancers are much more visible. So getting back to your question, our agents are specifically designed, and we have demonstrated that in clinical trials of over 1,000 patients, they go after cold and hot cancers. And by making cold cancers hot, they make them much more visible to the immune system. So those are what we are pursuing right now as our next generation of compounds. And there's a whole pipeline behind that as well.
We'll be back with Dr. Garo Armand, but up next, Keeping the Live in Alive with Debbie Nigro, sponsored by Native Path Collagen.
Now, it's time for Protecting Your Future, sponsored by Colonial Metals Group. Here's Roger Stone.
In these turbulent economic times, with the Federal Reserve insisting that they answer to no one and continuing to print money like it's going out of tomorrow, with national debt in the trillions and clearly unsustainable, with hundreds of lawsuits trying to stop Elon Musk, who's ferreted out not millions, not billions, but trillions in waste, fraud, and corruption. Now is the time to protect your future and do so with the strength of gold. Now is the time to acquire precious metals like gold and silver. You can convert your IRA or your 401k or some of your cash savings, and you can do it tax-free by acquiring gold and precious metals. The folks I trust are the folks at the Colonial Metals Group. You can reach them at colonialmetalsgroup.com/stone, or if you have questions, go to freegoldguide.com, and you'll be glad you did.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever find yourself playing the budgeting game? Well, with the Name Your Price tool from Progressive, you can find options that fit your budget and potentially lower your bills. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Summer's heating up, but the savings are cooling off. It's your last chance to shop Blinds.com's Memorial Day mega deals. Blinds.com invented a better way to shop for window treatments, completely online with upfront pricing, no showroom markups, no salespeople in your home. Choose from classic shutters to outdoor shades and more, all backed by our 100% satisfaction guarantee. It's your last chance to shop Blinds.com's Memorial Day mega deals. Save up to 50% with minimum purchase, plus a free measure. Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. It's the Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Audio Networks. We're talking to Dr. Gero Armen. He is the chairman and chief executive officer of Agenus Inc. He is also a respected PhD. Received his PhD in physical chemistry from the City University in New York. I had lunch with him, I think, about a week ago, maybe now. One of the smartest guys I've ever met. Thanks for joining us today on the Roger Stone Show.
Thank you very much, Roger. It's always a pleasure.
So, colorectal cancer used to be a disease of seniors. Now it's exploding in those who are in their 30s and 40s. Doctor, what's going on here, and why aren't we panicking?
You said this spot on, Roger, because all of a sudden, colorectal cancer has become the number one killer of men under the age of 50. And not only that, but in the context of our product development with BotVal, we get inquiries for compassionate use. And about 6 months ago, sadly, we got a compassionate use request for an 8-year-old little girl with advanced metastatic colorectal cancer. Never heard of that before. And because of red tape and bureaucracy, it's sad to say that regulatory process prohibited us to treat this girl under compassionate use, which is absolutely heartbreaking.
Absolutely incredible is what it is. So if immuno-oncology, which is really what you're advocating, is the future, why are young cancer patients still being steered to the 40-year-old regimen of chemotherapy and radiation, which in many cases seems to me to do more damage than good? I mean, if you survive it, you could survive, but there's a high probability that you won't survive it. Even when they recommended it to my own wife, they told her chances of success and survival, the percentage-wise, was extremely low.
That's right. That's right. I mean, you're absolutely right. For example, in colorectal cancer, the most recent drug that was approved about a year ago is a drug that extends life by merely 2 months with no cures in sight. And the drug prior to that was approved, is another drug that extended the life for, at that time, by 6 weeks. and a significant cost in quality of life to the patient. So all of these realities, I believe, are exactly the kind of crisis that the new leadership in Washington wants to stop. And that's what we need to do. And that's one of the reasons we need to work very rapidly with the regulatory agencies and sometimes overcome some of the hurdles that are being erected, which Commissioner McCary spoke about most recently. For example, he pointed out that for drugs that are being sold in other countries, we still require to go back to ground zero and do some animal tests, including, sadly, dogs like beagles and monkeys, which have no merit. So some of these bureaucracies, both in the preclinical setting, which means before a drug is taken to humans for testing, and in the postclinical setting, these older archaic rules need to be reformed. And that requires leadership who has the courage to do it. And that's what we're hoping for to progress into very rapidly.
Yeah, you just hit a very sore point with me. In the last Trump administration and early in this one, I worked voluntarily with the White Coat Lab Project to try to cut the funding for these inhumane and seemingly meritless scientific but barbaric experiments on dogs, on monkeys, on other primates. Yet I saw just last week that new funding has just been approved for these experiments. I'm going to have somebody, I think it is Justin Goodman from White Coat Lab Projects, back on the show to talk about this because it is horrific and it needs to end. Doctor, you've treated more than 1,000 late-stage patients across 10 cancers. How many of them walked away tumor-free, and how long have they stayed that way?
Okay. So in our trials, Roger, approximately 20% of the patients that are near their deathbed are looking like they will live a normal life for an extended period of time. What does that mean? I'm talking about well over 2 years. As we follow these patients, we look at the survival tail. And when you look at that, at least 20% of the patients look like they're living a normal, healthy life without chronic treatment that is required. In other words, we administer these drugs for a limited period of time, typically several weeks to several months, and then beyond that, they're drug-free. Now, as you go to earlier stages of disease, we've done a handful of patients in what we call neoadjuvant setting. These are patients in late stage 3 disease, and these patients are showing complete eradication of their tumors at least 50% of the time or more, at least that. So what's remarkable is that when these patients get one injection of one of our drugs called botensilimab and 2 injections of the other drug, balstilimab, by the way, these are infusions, that's all they need. And within 7 to 8 weeks, their tumor is gone. And for those that have demonstrated complete disappearance of tumor within an 8-week period, some of the patients now are up to about 18 months, and none of them have recurred. So this is a very exciting outcome. The message being, the earlier we treat patients, the better the outcomes. And unfortunately, again, because of archaic rules, we generally are stuck with treating patients that are near death instead of treating earlier stage patients that are still very sick, but instead of treating them with the better drug options, we still generally treat them with chemotherapy and radiation, which in itself is inhumane as well.
Well, last June, the FDA slammed the door on the therapy you recommend, and we have to hope and pray that under the new leadership that the FDA will grant conditional approval so that you can begin helping and curing people. Let me thank Dr. Gero Armen for joining us today. Dr. Armen, if folks want to go online and read more about your company and what you're doing, where can they go?
They can go to the website that we have. It's agenusbio.com, AGENUSBIO.com. And we have a fair amount of information there, including how patients can have access to our medicines through the compassionate use program.
Very good. I want to thank our guest, Dr. Gero Arman, for a lively discussion. The most important component in those fighting cancer is, of course, prayer. But I urge anybody to explore both Western medicine, but also alternative healing. I'm not a doctor. I only speak from my own experience with my beloved wife. Thanks for joining The Roger Stone Show.
The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
I am so excited for this spa day. Candles lit, music on. Hot tub warm and ready. And then my chronic hives come back. Again, in the middle of my spa day. What a wet blanket. Looks like another spell of itchy red skin. If you have chronic spontaneous urticaria or CSU, there is a different treatment option. Hives during my next spa day? Not if I can help it. Learn more at treatmyhives.com. Choosing a bottled Starbucks Frappuccino drink that's all flavor and just 100 calories? Easy. Choosing between creamy vanilla, double chocolate, and sea salt caramel flavors? A little harder. Try the delicious new Starbucks Frappuccino light drinks. Look for them wherever you buy groceries. Start with Starbucks coffee.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. This is The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Audio Networks. Here we talk news, history, politics, style, yes, food, culture, and we tell you the stone cold truth. U.S. tariff revenues rose 60% to $15 billion in April, which is a new all-time high. This proves, with low inflation, that the underlying economic philosophy of President Donald Trump is correct. U.S. President Donald Trump instituted new tariffs on foreign nations earlier this past month, including a 10% baseline tariff for most countries and a 25% tariff on steel and aluminum imports. While some countries had their tariffs paused, others, like China, saw tariffs increase by as much as 100%. Revenues from customs duty spiked more than 60% in April as the first levies took effect, bringing in at least $15 billion, according to Treasury data that was released this past Wednesday. The numbers largely do not account for the 10% universal tariffs that Trump announced on April 12th, meaning the collections in May are likely to climb even further. This, to me, shows that the president is right when he says that we should not give in to the panicans, as he calls them, those who don't have the courage to stay the course. The president is being guided by Secretary of the Treasury Scott Bessent, who I believe is one of the most brilliant men I've ever met, perhaps the greatest Secretary of the Treasury since Alexander Hamilton. And I can tell you there is no panic, and there are no panicans within the Trump inner circle. My confidence is in the president, who I do believe, if he also gets, and this is all important, his tax cuts renewed. No, they're not tax cuts for the rich. They're tax cuts across the board. This false claim put forward by Robert Reich, for example. I went to high school with that guy. He was the labor secretary in the Clinton administration, that inflation or our massive deficits are caused by tax reduction is disproven by the facts, whether it was the across-the-board tax cuts under Donald Trump in his first term or the across-the-board tax cuts by Ronald Reagan during his first and second term, or the tax cuts of John F. Kennedy. In every instance, federal revenues spiked sharply after the tax cuts. Our inflation and, frankly, our deficits are caused by spending. Elon Musk has shown us the way in terms of where and how to cut spending. It is only a question of whether we have the will to do it. It is a three-legged stool. Yes, we need to have fair trade practices between us and our trading partners. how incredibly refreshing it would be to have trade agreements where both trading partners benefit, not just one. The president has thrown out these one-size-fits-all trade agreements like GATT and the others, and he's on the right course. I, for one, I'll never be a panican. Meanwhile comes news that Virginia Giuffre, later Virginia Giuffre Roberts, who was a pivotal witness in Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking scandal, was found dead at her home in Australia. Now, I interviewed Virginia Giuffre for some 12 hours. I still have the audio tape for my 2015 book, The Clintons' War on Women. Most of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, between the time that he was charged with a state sex crime in Florida and the time that he was arrested and charged federally with sex crimes, settled for millions of dollars, but not Virginia Giuffre. I found her to be courageous, perfectly balanced, lucid. Certainly there was some trauma from her horrific experience, but I also read all of her sworn testimony about her sexual abuse at the hands of Prince Andrew and a number of other A-listers. She was 41 years old. Now, her death is being widely reported as a suicide, but it is being investigated by the West Australian major crime detectives. Her testimony was instrumental in securing Ghislaine Maxwell's 2021 conviction and cast a damning spotlight again on Prince Andrew and a man named Jean-Luc Brunel, yet another of Epstein's pimps. Giuffre claimed that Epstein trafficked her to both Andrew and Brunel, among others, sparking a 2021 lawsuit against Prince Andrew, which was settled in 2022. And, of course, Brunel would go on to commit suicide that same year. Born in Florida, Virginia Giuffre suffered childhood abuse before Maxwell groomed her for Epstein's exploitation from 1999 all the way to 2002. The Epstein files still remain unreleased. I don't believe that there is a list per se, but there is no question that the FBI recovered from the safes in Epstein's palatial home in Manhattan, from his island in the Virgin Islands, from his ranch in New Mexico, and from his apartment in Paris, hard drives and DVDs that I think would tell us the answer to the unanswered question of who were his co-conspirators and who was he trafficking children to. I am still hopeful that FBI Director Kash Patel and Attorney General Pam Bondi will get to the bottom of this mystery. In the meantime, New York Attorney General Letitia James has tapped criminal defense attorney Abby Lowell, who previously defended Hunter Biden against federal tax and gun charges as she fights mortgage fraud allegations. Now, I'm very familiar with Abby Lowell. He represented former New York Senate Majority Leader Joe Bruno, who I think was falsely charged with corruption and who stood trial in upstate New York and was ultimately convicted on all counts. After the U.S. Supreme Court vacated that conviction, Senator Joe Bruno, one of the greatest men I ever knew, fired Abby Lowell and retained a local bulldog criminal defense attorney out of Albany, and he was subsequently acquitted on all charges. Early in the Hunter Biden defense, Lowell actually sent me a letter urging me to preserve all of my records regarding Hunter Biden's laptop. That was very easy for me to do because I had no such records. Everything I knew about Hunter Biden, I read either in the New York Post or in Breitbart News. But the tactic is important to note. The hiring of Lowell by Letitia James, who will face additional problems beyond her mortgage fraud, including serial sexual abuse and its cover-up, as well as epic campaign finance fraud, comes on the heels of Federal Housing Finance Agency Director William Pulte, who sent a criminal referral to the Department of Justice early this month. In a letter published by the New York Times, Knoll claims that the criminal referral is improper political retribution. The stunning hypocrisy of President Trump's complaint that the Justice Department has been politicized and websites against him is laid bare as he and others in his administration are now asking you to undertake the very same practice. Here's the problem. Abby Lowell, who will put his name on anything, and Letitia James are cooked. There are documents. You can find them at whitecollarfraud.com. These are the actual documents in which it is absolutely proven that she has not only lied under oath in these documents, but lied repeatedly in all of her financial disclosures that are required by New York state law. You're listening to The Roger Stone Show, and we'll be right back.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We're back on the Roger Stone Show here at the Red Apple Audio Networks. Last night, Mrs. Stone and I watched the movie Conclave. I kind of wish I had seen this movie prior to writing the long piece that I published that handicaps the race for Pope. But if nothing, the movie underlines the political nature of this upcoming contest. And despite the fact that I didn't love the politically correct surprise ending of that film, which I'm not going to give away, I do urge you to check it out. Consistent with the prediction that I made last week, Cardinal Pier Battista Pizzaballa has emerged as a dark horse candidate. He is the Italian Catholic prelate who currently serves as the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, has done so since November of 2020. He is, as I say, a dark horse. Anyone who thinks that this isn't about politics do not understand the modern day church. Now, I have been a harsh critic of Cardinal Francis because he reached an agreement with the Chinese Communist Party, which allowed the Chinese to have veto power as to who could serve as either a bishop or a priest in China. That is reaching an accommodation with evil. The Catholic Church that I grew up in, the Church of Fulton Sheen and Cardinal Spellman, was a bulwark of anti-communism and stood up against brutal authoritarian regimes like that in communist China. So tomorrow I will be interviewed by Piers Morgan. That is in itself a bit of an anomaly. I've declined that singular honor a number of times in the past because I object to this deification of the last pope because I think he did many evil things. I will talk about that tomorrow with Piers. But it is the politics of this situation, I think, should be recognized. Meanwhile, Pete Hegseth is being attacked, not because he did anything wrong, but the baseless attacks on him, I think, are because he stood fast against going to war with Iran. In cabinet meetings early this month, Secretary Hegseth voiced concerns that even a buildup of American weaponry, which could potentially spark a wider conflict with Iran, that the U.S. did not want and he did not support. NPRs continue to run a debunked story that Hegseth shared classified information in a signal chat with his wife, a claim that the White House has dismissed as entirely baseless and for which NPR has provided no evidence or proof. Perhaps this is why President Trump has already recommended that the federal funding of NPR be removed. Last week, actually almost a week and a half ago, I was with Sicker Mule Chief Executive Officer Anthony Constantino when he presented President Donald Trump at his Florida golf course, Trump International in Palm Beach, with a 7-foot bronze statue of President Donald Trump. Constantino, who has been a vocal supporter of Trump, financed, as you may remember, the largest vote for Trump sign in the nation, for which the local Democrat mayor in Amsterdam, New York, actually threatened to put him in jail. In fact, people don't know this, but the sign is still in place, and Constantino pays a $1,000 a month fine. He hasn't actually paid the fine. He's contesting it, but he continues to rack up that charge. Anthony Constantino's gift to the president will now be a permanent fixture at the Trump International Golf Club. It's actually quite amazing. Sits atop this stone pedestal with the president's name. The president was very happy. He was in a joking mood, and it was really great to see. Constantino met with the president at the monument before the president went out to play a round of golf. The statue, which is called the Defiance Monument, is prominently placed between the Trump International Clubhouse and the first hole of the 27th-hole golf course. I did speak on the air last week about a very scary situation where roughly now 2 weeks ago on a Thursday night at about 11 o'clock, my wife had what they now call a cardiac event after losing consciousness and first vomiting and then losing consciousness. She was rushed by ambulance to the local hospital where a cardiologist conducted tests saying that she had idiopathic cardiomyopathy, which is a classification of cardiomyopathy characterized by heart muscle dysfunction without any identifiable underlying cause, even after thorough evaluation. This condition is particularly significant because it can lead to immediate heart failure, arrhythmia, and what they call sudden cardiac death. The doctor essentially sent her home, saying that nothing could be done for her. You can imagine what it is like to be told on a Friday afternoon that you may have days to live. What we found out by going to a much better and accomplished cardiologist that what she has is actually known as broken heart syndrome, which can arise in response to intense emotions and stress. The symptoms include sudden squeezing chest pain, shortness of breath, mimicking those of a heart attack, exactly what she had experienced. It is, however, entirely reversible and is brought on by further stress. The good news, thanks be to the grace of Jesus Christ Almighty, my wife will be fine, but my opinion of Western medicine is even lower than it used to be. I couldn't even get the cardiologist on the phone for 3 days, nor could I wrench the medical tests from the hospital. But God is good, and Mrs. Stone is still with us and will be well. I want to thank the many, many people who told us they were praying for us after I revealed all this on the Stone Zone during the week.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back. We're back in the Roger Stone Show. Joining me now is Michelle Fiore. She is a former assemblywoman who represented the parts of northwestern Clark County for 2 terms in the Nevada State Assembly. She's also a former Las Vegas City Council member and now a respected judge. She now joins a very elite club to which both I and former President Richard Nixon are members, because late last week she was granted a full and unconditional presidential pardon because she too was the target of a politically motivated witch hunt and prosecution led by Stephen Meyer, a federal prosecutor in Nevada. And I think the basis of this indictment goes all the way back to the Bundy Ranch controversy. Michelle Fiore, welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Thank you so much, Roger, for having me on the Stone Show. I'm very honored.
So I followed your case, obviously. I candidly admit to being a full-throated advocate for executive clemency in your case because I read the case, and it stunk of politicization. And it does appear to me to go all the way back to the Bundy Ranch case where you were a harsh critic of the U.S. Bureau of Land Management. But here's the thing I really don't understand. Among the things you were charged with was collecting money to build a statue of a fallen law enforcement officer. And they claim that you pocketed that money and the statue was never built, yet I have seen videos and still photos of the dedication of the statue. So what gives?
So this is an issue that, Roger, I'm still going to need your help going forth on because, yes, thank God, first of all, thank God that I am a free woman today. And thank President Donald J. Trump for giving me my life back, Roger. Thank you so much for being an advocate. I know you guys are close. I've got to thank my pardon attorney, Christina Wilderbelt. She's, just a Jewish woman that shakes trees and wouldn't stop calling and emailing. And, she was just amazing. So, when I think about the prosecution that I've just faced, it does begin with the Bundys and it never ended. Like, you're looking at what I went through, and most people don't know because I just went about my business, staying strong. But you're looking at 4 failed investigations that Stephen Myrie, the number 2. It's a true COINTELPRO style operation where the DOJ, the FBI, the IRS, and select media outlets worked in concert to target and dismantle my life. They had multiple grand juries convened, yet none could produce a bill of indictment for 8 years. They had 2 elite strike teams from Washington, D.C., which were deployed with a clear objective to destroy my name and credibility. And then a federal raid, Roger, that invaded my home, desecrated my sanctuary, looted irreplaceable family heirlooms, and attempted to just crush me. I was labeled a domestic terrorist, not once, but twice, and they labeled me a level 1 the first time and a level 2 the second time on their threat assessments without, Roger, any cause or justification. And then the 66-page affidavit, which is, a public document, a 66-page affidavit used to justify the raid. It was so overreaching and absurd that I just want you to know, a lot of people say, oh, you can indict a bologna ham sandwich. They could have indicted a mouse being hand-fed cheese with this 66 affidavit. Roger, it's been a rough road, and I'm finally realizing that I've got my life back thanks to our president, Donald J. Trump. He saw, what has happened. We were very thorough in following all the legal proceedings and making sure that the pardons office had all of this evidence to show as we asked for this pardon. And it was so blatant. And here's the thing, the statue that's standing, the media, when I tell you the media, it's the same story and it's a lie. But what attorney, Roger, what attorney do we know that will go up against the newspapers, the news media and say, you're lying? And sue them. I don't know of any attorney that has the guts to do it.
The biggest problem, in all honesty, in your case or in my case, is that we're public figures. So people regularly accuse me of being a Russian intelligence asset. I can't sue them. I'm not, of course. Not an iota of evidence that that's true. Or that they say that I collaborated with WikiLeaks. Really? The federal government never produced any evidence to that extent. In fact, in my case, when my lawyers asked for Robert Mueller's entire unredacted final report, in which all the sections about me were blacked out, the judge said that she would review the report in her chambers and give my defense attorneys the sections that were relevant to me. She neglected to give them the section in which even Robert Mueller could not sugarcoat the fact that he had found his words, factual barriers to my prosecution, based on the fact that there was no evidence of Russian collusion, no evidence of WikiLeaks collaboration. In fact, in his own words, he couldn't find any crime. So they cooked one up, which is what they appeared to have done in your case. Michelle, how long do you think you were under federal surveillance?
An easy 8 years. Because here's the thing, Roger. I have the 90,000 pages of discovery, which is still sealed because they are basically sealing their crimes. And they had digital and physical surveillance on me, over 57 agents for over 8 years. They've spent millions upon millions of dollars to find something that they could falsely accuse me of and then lie to a jury. You know, it was just, it's just so gross.
I believe me, I fully understand what you're talking about. My case is also still sealed. I can only talk about those portions of it that have been made public, such as the release of Robert Mueller's report. When did they release it? At midnight on November 3rd of 2020, the busiest media day of the year, to ensure that no one saw it. By the way, no coverage of that incredible exonerating document by the Washington Post or the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal or the Associated Press. It was covered by Zero Hedge. It was covered by the Gateway Pundit. It was covered, of course, in the Stone Zone, stonezone.com. But I recall, I think it was Ray Donovan, Secretary of Labor in the Reagan administration, wrongly accused of misconduct, but ultimately exonerated, who famously said, "Where do you go to get your good name back?" And the answer, quite sadly, is nowhere. Also, looking at Stephen Meyer, this guy's had his own problems. I mean, in 2018, the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, concluded that he, along with the former U.S. Attorney Greg Bauer, subjected a female prosecutor to sexual discrimination and retaliation. The female prosecutor complained about sexist remarks made by her white-collar supervisor, and the U.S. attorney displayed a hostile attitude towards her. This guy's no angel. And then he was cited for prosecutorial misconduct in the Bundy case itself. This, I think, is where we first met, because just looking at it from the outside, it was clear to me that Cliven Bundy, who the Fed said hadn't paid his rental fees, paid the state rather than the feds, because that's who he believed the land belonged to. But if you read the newspaper stories, it acted like he had paid no one. But the violent attack on his ranch goes, I think, in the annals of history as one of the great acts of overreach by the federal government. I think that their hatred of you dates back to your standing up for the Bundys and standing up for the Constitution, standing up to their rights. And then it is exacerbated by the fact that in Nevada, you were among the earliest and most outspoken supporters of President Donald Trump, back when other establishment Republicans believed that he had no chance to become president. That is the fastest way to get a target put on your back.
Oh, yes.
Yep. My next question is a simple one. Now, you are still on the bench, correct?
Yes, I'm still on the bench. However, the Judicial Discipline Commission has to rescind the suspension, and even though they have this sealed pardon, that's a full pardon and unconditional, they want to go a next step and let the judge sign off on it first. So it's amazing to me that the games these people play, and again, let them play them. I'm a elected judge. I'm going back on my bench, whether it would be next week or the week after, but I'm going back on my bench, and that's it.
Well, let me say this, because you probably haven't thought about it much, but I've had this experience a little bit longer. Trust me, sister, you have just been empowered. People will recognize that they did you wrong. They also recognize that this was political. God forbid for your enemies that you choose to run for elective office again, because if you do, you will win. I've got a lot of friends in the Nevada Republican Party, but let's be honest, they could use some better candidates out there.
So I have to just be crystal clear, Roger. As a judge, my future will be a judge, whether it be my justice of the peace here in Pahrump or eventually a federal judge after I finish law school and take the bar. But I do not want to run for anything anymore. Because let me tell you something. Besides the COINTELPRO with the DOJ, the FBI, the IRS, and the media, there was a fifth agency too. I read an article yesterday in the Las Vegas Review-Journal, and they had a retired Metro police officer who had nothing good to say, calling me a grifter. But he said he's a retired Metro, and he collaborated with an investigation on me. So it's just, again, so there's 5 agencies. It's 100% COINTELPRO. Nevada is truly a good old boy state, and I just don't want to be part of it. I love being a judge. I love helping people get their life back on track, and I love the nonpartisan of it, but you'll always have partisan politics when it comes to personalities such as mine, or especially Trump's. I mean, even though I'm a judge now, I do have a history of being a firebrand in the GOP, but Trump, President Donald J. Trump, again, gave me my life back. So I cannot say enough about that man.
All right, if you're just tuning in, we're talking to Judge Michelle Fiore, newly pardoned by President Donald Trump. And whatever you do, don't touch that dial, because we'll be right back with a bit more of Michelle Fiore.
The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Roger Stone Show. Entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And we're back. We're talking with former Nevada Assemblywoman, former Las Vegas City Councilwoman, now a judge, but one of President Donald Trump's early supporters in the Silver State, Michelle Fiore, who only last week received a full and unconditional pardon because she was charged in a political witch hunt in which the federal government spent multi-millions of dollars in as long as, I think, 8 years to try to cook up some charges against her. And the absolute epitome of a weaponized judicial case. I've worked in 38 states. I must tell you, in a 50-year career in American politics, I think Nevada is the single most corrupt state in the country. I hate to say it, but it's a one-party state. It is the establishment party. And particularly complicit, I think, is the Nevada media. I read a lot of stories about your case. I saw a lot of things in those stories that I knew to be materially incorrect, but I couldn't find any balance. I couldn't find anybody who was willing to dig in and write the other side of the story. I had to encourage a bunch of alternative journalists to go do that because I felt you were being so fairly uncharacterized. Not that long ago, I flew out there to speak to the Clark County Republican Lincoln, I think it was Lincoln Douglas dinner. It was a great crowd. I had a great time, despite the fact that I missed my flight and had to connect through Atlanta, and that the airline lost my bags, and it was still worth the trip. But I spoke after Governor Joe Lombardo. Let's just say that he's not exactly a barn burner when it comes to oratory. And he never once in his remarks mentioned the most popular Republican president in modern times. And on the one hand, he says he's opposed to Las Vegas being a sanctuary city or Nevada being a sanctuary state, yet I know definitively that he's urged the 17 sheriffs in the state not to cooperate with Tom Homan and ICE in the deportation of illegals. He remains an enigma to me. The entire situation in Nevada is perplexing to me. Here's what bothers me the most. In 1960, it was thought on election night that Vice President Richard Nixon had carried Hawaii. Supporters of John F. Kennedy and his campaign filed an alternative slate of electors because they insisted that once all of the absentee ballots were counted, that JFK would have carried Hawaii. The Nixon electors were certified. However, they were right. When the absentee ballots were counted, JFK had prevailed, and his alternative electors were seated. There is no such thing as a fake elector. There have been alternative electors in the 1960 election and the election of 1877, but there are 6 individuals in Nevada still facing criminal charges because they stood by, prepared to be electors if the outcome of the vote in Nevada had been successfully legally challenged. The minutes of their meeting reflect that, yet they still face criminal charges for which Governor Lombardo could pardon them and put this sordid story behind us, but that doesn't happen. Michelle, if you're not able to comment on any of this, I understand it, but speaking for myself, I find that really objectionable.
So I totally understand what you're saying, but I can talk about my case and what's out in the public on my case, through motions and stuff like that. On that particular case, I can't have an opinion on it.
That's okay. I told you what I think, and it really it rankles me. I find it very hard to understand. This is an absurd argument. The whole notion of a fake elector. And by the way, I was not involved in any way in the efforts to delay the certification of the Electoral College. Reports that I was in a war room at the Willard Hotel, that's a lie. The Washington Post had 3 different sources saying that there was nothing to that. If there was a war room in the Willard Hotel on January 5th and 6th, I was never in it. Any claim that I knew about, participated in, or condoned any illegal action on January 6th is categorically false, and there is no evidence, no email, no text message, no video, no audio, no email, as I say, no witness who can claim otherwise, but you'll find it all over social media. And kind of like you, we're public figures. You can defame us, and we have very little recourse. All right, we have to wrap it up there. Michelle Fiore, first of all, I want to congratulate you for getting your life back. Secondarily, I am confident that you will go on and that your greatest days of public service lie ahead. I'm sure you agree with me that we were delighted to see President Donald Trump today tweet that he's bringing Columbus Day back to celebrate our common Italian-American heritage. Michelle, my friend, God bless you and Godspeed.
Thank you. I love it, and I wear my hat that you gave me. I love it, that hat.
I gave her a hat that said, "Make America Italian Again." Many thanks. Folks, thank you so much for joining us today on the Roger Stone Show. Until we meet again, God bless you and Godspeed.
I love you, Roger.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.